everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am Adorkable Rachel, and it's time once again for another episode of Rachel Reviews, so let's just hop into it. Captain Underpants! Woo! Tra-la-la! So, if you watched my Captain Underpants reaction video, then you know that I loved these books when I was growing up, so I was so excited to finally see this movie. In fact, this is a series that inspired me to create my own comic books, and I was so sure that I was gonna make a career out of that one day. But now, I just play with puppets and I make videos on the internet. The story of Captain Underpants centers on two best friends, Harold and George, who love to play pranks and make comic books, especially of a character that they created themselves called Captain Underpants. Because to them, most superheroes actually look like they're just wearing underwear. It's true, they do! So why not have a superhero that only wears underwear? Wait a second, were they ripping off Quailman this whole time and we just never noticed? But one day, their mean old principal, Mr. Krupp, threatens to separate the two boys into different classes, which to them is like, oh no, the end of the world as we know it! Even though they do live next door to each other and they establish that they hang out every day after school and they probably wouldn't interact in the classroom anyway, but alright. Anyway, they find a hypnotizing ring, don't ask, and they use it on Mr. Krupp to make him believe that he is in fact their creation, Captain Underpants. Which then of course leads to lots of mayhem, misunderstandings, sight gags, and lots of potty humor galore. Oh, and there's also a mastermind villain who's bent on world domination, ending laughter altogether, and even has the unfortunate name of Professor Poopy Pants. It is a lot sillier than it sounds. So for any of you Jim Henson fans out there, you might actually recognize the guy that wrote the script, Nick Stoller, because he is the guy who co-wrote the last two Muppet films. Which actually does make a lot of sense, because there are a lot of self-aware moments in this movie that you would probably tend to find in a lot of Nick Stoller's surreal comedy films. The Captain Underpants movie actually does have a lot of very tongue-in-cheek moments, and what really makes it work for this film is that they don't really use them all the time, but they do use them in moments when the audience could really use them. For example, towards the end of the film, I kind of noticed that there wasn't really a moral being demonstrated in this movie, at least not one that really, drives the scope of the film. But right around the time that I was thinking this, the boys actually did address the camera like, and that's our story. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you learned a valuable lesson. Wait, was there a lesson to this story? Huh? Oh, I don't know. Probably not. The fact that they actually take the time to address the audience during those moments, that does make the film a lot more enjoyable. Especially if you're a parent that's probably forced to sit through this. Whether they're addressing the camera or not, this movie does have a lot of really clever ways to remind you that this is just a silly fun story and it's just supposed to be fun. And really, that's all this movie is. Interestingly enough, the animation in this movie reminds me a lot of the animation in the Peanuts movie because they took these really simple designs but found a way to animate them in a fun way that still fits the tone of the story. The animation's really quick and it's comical, and they also found a way to work in puppets. I know, I was shocked too! What was also really fun is that sometimes there would be lines or drops of sweat that came out of the characters, or even a snap effect when someone snaps their fingers, kind of like visual effects from a comic book. I also got to watch this movie in 3D, and besides the realistic depth of the different objects and people and all the stuff on screen, having all the comic book effects like really pop out was also really awesome to watch. And what's also really visually interesting about this movie is that sometimes they'll take a break from the 3D, like they'll have the puppet segment that I mentioned, or they'll also do like some 2D animation, or they'll also do like a flip book effect because, the kids are artists and it makes sense. Now again, if you did check out my trailer reaction video to this movie, then you may remember that I mentioned that I've never really been a big fan of juvenile humor like this. And it started to make me wonder if even when I was a kid I kind of tended to cringe at humor like that, then why did I enjoy the book series so much? Well, I'm not a brain expert, but I have two possible theories. One is that technically this whole entire series is based around this potty humor, from the characters to the stories to the villains, so it's not nearly as out of place as, say, like an alien farting out of nowhere in a really dignified sci-fi series. The other reason that I think this whole idea works is because the stories really are told from the perspective of the two young boys, and at its core, the series is about the bonds of friendship and about the importance of creativity. They created a lot of these potty-based jokes and ideas themselves, and that really demonstrates their bond as best friends. Yes, kids think that this kind of stuff is funny. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're stupid or don't know good humor when they see it. It's just that these are the kind of things that we find comical when we're at that age. Our minds are growing. So does everything, including our humor. And what makes the two boys work really well is that they're written in a way that both kids and adults can identify with them. They don't seem to play pranks to be brats in a normal school. They do it to make fun out of a gloomy school that they have to endure every day, where the teachers are either boring or cruel. And they also cut down the boys for creating their art, which again, lots of people can relate to. And even in this crazy shenanigans-filled universe that they live in, the boys do suffer consequences for some of their actions. So what I'm getting at is, I think that the Captain Underpants series is a lot more organic than a lot of other potty-based books or TV series or whatever's out there that's not that popular. And I guess the reason I've never been a big fan of really random juvenile humor like this in, movies and stuff is because it just feels cheap and lazy and it really has no thought put into it. But surprisingly, the books and this movie, they do have a lot of thought put into them. And I don't have a lot of complaints about this movie, but if I did have to be nitpicky, then I would say that probably some of the voice acting was a little distracting. Now keep in mind, this movie does have some pretty good celebrity talent that do have voiceover experience, but something I noticed about this film, and actually something I'm noticing in a lot of kids media these days, is that Harold and George, who are played by Thomas Middleditch and Kevin Hart, sound a lot like regular adults, rather than just sounding like kids. And this is becoming a bigger trend in Hollywood, but I guess me personally, I just would have been less distracted if they actually sounded younger. And this is more from my own personal selfish taste, but I personally would have liked it better if Mr. Krupp maybe sounded a little more evil. And again, he is played by Ed Helms, who is a really talented actor, and his performance as Captain Underpants was definitely hilarious and entertaining, but it is possible that his evil side was maybe downplayed a little bit so that he wouldn't be too scary for the kids. And then there's Nick Kroll as Professor Poopy Pants. Now, don't get me wrong, his character was actually a lot of fun to watch, but he kind of had a European accent that went in and out a lot, and that's the part that was really distracting. Not the accent, just the fact that it went in and out. And I have no idea if that was intentional or not, but again, I feel like it would have been less distracting if it was just a little more consistent. But besides all of that, from what I remember from the books, this did feel like a fairly faithful adaptation to the spirit of the series. It does of course take some creative liberties for the sake of movie story structure, but I think that the movie worked really well. This is a movie that's created for kids, clearly, especially ones under the age of 10, but as someone who did grow up with the series and also just, kind of got some nostalgia feels for it, I really had a fun time watching it. The humor is good and meta, and the animation is quick and fun. Oh, and if you don't already know, Weird Al does the theme song. So anyway, if you didn't grow up with this series, or if you don't have kids of your own, it's kind of debatable as to whether or not you're gonna like this film, but I can promise you that it is a really fun movie with some really silly and self-aware moments, and it does have a lot of heart. So if you do decide to watch it, then I pretty much guarantee that you will get something out of it, even if it's just a couple of laughs that will bring out your inner immature child. I mean, I don't think it's gonna quite go up there with some of the greatest animated films ever, but I am really glad that I saw it, and I'm glad to finally see Captain Underpants on the big screen. So it's definitely worth it. So those are my thoughts on the brand new Captain Underpants, the first epic movie. So now I want to know, did you guys get a chance to see it? And if so, what did you think? Did you grow up with the series? Did you not? Are you a parent with kids who also love it? Did you like the meta humor? Did you like the voice acting? And was there anything in there that I completely missed that you love or don't love? What are your thoughts? Well, go ahead and leave your comments below. Be sure to like and share. And if you're new and like what you saw here, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And also be sure to hit the little bell button down there to get notified when new stuff comes out, because guess what? I make new videos every week. Bye, Adorkable Buddies. I'll see you soon.